So, everyone says that if you want to upgrade yourself or your life, you need to change your surroundings, right? You need to change your environment. They say things like move, travel, find new people, just be in a different environment. And is that true? 100%. But what happens when you are an intellect that has outgrown their peers and environment long before you understood why you felt this way and why you felt so misunderstood? However, you can't change your environment just yet, right? Because this is something that happens young. Like, I'm talking elementary can happen or your whole childhood. You just can't have the tools to necessarily move, change, or travel or any of that. And so, is it possible to still build something for yourself, to still change yourself, even if you're in the wrong environment? I want to say to that answer, yes, you can, because I have done it so myself. And in this video, I want to share how I became a confident person, even though I am in a highly misunderstood environment. I'll be sharing the story of kind of my background as context, and I'll also be talking about how exactly I overcame these and some things you can take away from this. So, since elementary, like, I have always had some very difficult experiences around me versus people around me, right? I remember I just would never resonate with their gossip or anything. I remember once pointing it out, and then my friend would be like, "Oh, you do it too," and then I'm like, "Cause that's all there is to contribute here." And so I never really fit in anywhere. I never felt like I belonged anywhere, and this was very triggered in, like, just 2 years ago when I took a nature course for a semester, and it's basically like school but just in a different environment. Um, and it was nature focused. And I remember, even though it was a fun course and I learned many great things from learning outside the traditional classroom, I still felt so lonely during those times. And oftentimes I'd question if I'm even allowed to be here because that's how misunderstood I felt. And this comes from like having very different interests and just not being connected to them the same way that your peers are. Um, Basically, I am also very into philosophy, self improvement, and growth. And additionally, I'm also a HSP. I identify as HSP, highly sensitive person. So I definitely do perceive information much more deeply. I feel things much more deeply. And this often caused a lot of mismatch when I was talking to people because people my age would not be focused on that. They're not focused on growth or anything like that. They're not focused on how to improve themselves, right? They're typically stuck in the surface level things like gossip and drama. And so I've always felt misunderstood because who I am could literally never be engaged with. Even at home, I have immigrant parents who are focused on survival and basically value survival over any emotional attention or anything like that. So they knew how to cook and clean, but they didn't know how to cater to my needs, especially as an HSP, which I definitely needed someone like that. And so I had a lot of trouble just feeling like I belonged and feeling like who I am matters, as I've kind of talked about in my last two videos. I also had depression in 8th grade. Like, I went in and got a little test to see if I had depression, and I was having some results of depression. And this was because who I was not engaged with, my everyday environment. The people around me were just not focused on psychology, philosophy, deep thinking, and growth as much as myself. So I always really struggled that way. And so that caused a lot of frustration and just a lot of internalized beliefs, like negative beliefs about myself. So that's what kind of made me unconfident and struggle with confidence like forever. And I'd often want to say hi to people, but then I'd always hold myself back because I just never felt like I belonged anywhere. To this day, I still get a bit of weird looks whenever I am like talking about deep stuff and psychology, and I'm just very curious and I question things that many people do not question. And so I still struggle with that. I still face that. However, my self-esteem is way less shaken because I have built something strong in myself by myself. Firstly, I invested into my interests a lot. Like, I believe that your hobbies are not random at all. They are actually a reflection of you and can be an amazing expression of who you are. And so I just remember, like, in my early years, like, I would always just journal. I'm an introvert, so I am into more like solitary interests. But this can look different for everyone. But basically, I would do things like art. I like painting in my free time. I would invest in that. And I would do sport, analyze people, and I'd go out in nature, right? These things kind of remind me that, okay, it kind of reminds you and brings you back to yourself, because you're like, okay, I have a sense of self, right? Every action that you do that you feel resonates with you is going to reinforce with your brain that, okay, this is who I am and I can do something, and this can add to me as a human being. And so I think we should never take our hobbies for granted. They definitely say something about us. And so I definitely invested in my interests, right? And I also did a lot of journaling as something that I also love doing in my free time. And so I just really invested into those things. And these are all proof to yourself, right? And if you end up winning a medal or anything like that, which I do have, right? These can all be like physical proof that, hey, like I can do great things. I can use talent. I have talents and I know how to use them, right? So this can be really good proof for yourself, even unconsciously. You just know that even if you don't know it consciously, right? Unconsciously, your brain's like, okay, I stand for something. I am talented in something, right? And if you don't have hobbies, like this is a really good time to really explore that, right? Try a bunch of different things, right? Start with what you just enjoy doing and then just go from there. And whether that's people, you might do drama classes or hang out with a group, organize something, those kind of things. Secondly, because I am interested in philosophy and psychology as something that's I've loved forever, this is very good for unique insight telling. A lot of my friends and family really like how I gave them insights and advice to their problems, and this really fueled my intellect side, which is very important to me. And it's because I could have a mix of empathy, which came from the psychology interest and knowing how behavior works, because I just have a lot of interest in it and research it a lot. And then it also came from the philosophy part, the actual wisdom part, which I would do. Well, I wouldn't say I was super into philosophy until recently, but I definitely was always philosophical, and so I really leaned into that because I leaned into my interests, I was able to mix those two things to make really good advice for my friends and family, which they appreciated. And as a result, I felt more fueled, and this was also kind of more proof for me that who I am matters and it makes an impact on other people. So this helped me bring my big picture empathic thinking into a better purpose that really fueled me in the long term. Third is that I express gratitude for myself. So whenever I would do something that I liked, right? Like let's say I accomplished something, I would express that. I even have an app called Gratitude, and it's a really great app to constantly practice gratitude. You can have like a little streak with it. You can add friends with it. I haven't, but there's an option to join a friend with it. You can get new prompts every week. You can take a 1 week challenge. And so things like that, just practicing gratitude with yourself, right? Recognizing your own strengths and accomplishments helps to really get that sense of self. Fourth is to really take the time to think about, okay, who am I without these people, right? Because when I felt most lonely in my life, I was trying to see myself and I interpreted myself through the lenses of people who weren't on my level, you could say, intellectually, and also just did not experience the world the same as me, right? And so even with my own parents, like they just simply did not experience the world the same way as I did. And so I ended up kind of getting their mean comments, like internalizing their mean comments sometimes of, oh, you're overthinking it, or oh, you again with your deep questions, your philosophical questions, because some people really do get bothered by that. Like depth truly does bother a lot of people, even if they have it. Like a lot of people are just scared to go deep into anything. And so I'd internalize that, right? But by practicing gratitude and also identifying your true self outside of what other people's opinions are, that's when you really have some growth and self-discovery. Because before I thought, especially when I was in my nature course, I thought I was mean. I thought I was, like, I perceived myself as, say, mean, distant, not friendly, broken in some way, right? I'd internalize all of these negative things. But then once I kind of invested in my hobbies and also reflected, like, who am I outside of these people? Like, how do I act at home? And what kind of intentions do I typically think about on a day-to-day basis? I realized that actually I would describe myself more so as very analytical, okay, very intellectual, analytical. That's why the philosophy, psychology interests are there. I would describe myself now as very empathic, right? It's actually helped a lot of my friends, like way more than I realize. Like, I get shocked sometimes seeing this much, that I've helped these people that much. Now I would describe myself as very curious, right? Because I kind of removed that picture of, okay, how am I fitting in with these people? And instead just looked at myself like, who am I truly, you know? So I really reflected on that and took the time to see, who am I without these external beliefs that are not actually true at all. And lastly, I know it's very hard, but for the intellectuals who feel misunderstood and maybe your talents and gifts are not quite recognized yet, I would say to myself, like, even a year from now, just keep expressing. Like, keep expressing. Like, even though you are not in the best environment, right? Just keep expressing, because eventually you'll find a couple of lucky opportunities as you express these things. So, for me, this happened through, I met an amazing exchange friend who is not from here, and they helped me to really see how, like, intellectual I really am and how much I analyze everything. And that's something they actually enjoyed, and that's something that actually built our friendship in the first place, is that my intellect was really interesting for them, even though that's something that most people in my everyday life are like, whatever, you know, like, stop thinking so deep, you know. And so just keep expressing. And I know this can also show up in the form of online community, right? Like any Discord or group chats, those things online, or any like clubs, communities, right? Because although we can't change our environment, we can change the kind of opportunities we go to, and the kind of in the way that we express ourselves, which will attract the right things. So even though it is very hard, I know, this is something I'd say to myself, like, even though it's very hard to be misunderstood all the time, to not have your voice heard, right? Still, like, just keep showing up, keep sharing your voice, and the right people will come, and the right opportunities will slowly come. I also did this through the form of discussions. So I would take, like, I take like higher level courses, like university level courses. And even though I don't plan on going on post-secondary, I still took these university courses because they challenge me more, and the discussions are pretty deep. And that's, I feel like I shine the most, okay? I took philosophy in person and also English class in person, university level for both. And I find that I feel very lit up whenever I'm doing discussions, because I find it so cool that they ask questions like in my English class, is education still power today? Or they look at, if someone code switches, are they authentic, right? I love those kind of questions, and I love answering, and I love that kind of intellectual stimulation I get from there, right? All because I discuss, right? All because I raise my hand and I just keep talking. That is how I did that. And so also, like, push yourself to discuss, right? A lot of times, because I felt like I had to shrink, right, I would not share my voice, I would not say amazing things. But through that, like, adults would hear this, right? I could actually have intellectual engagement, even if it's not with my peer groups, right? Which we can't change the environment, because I still, like, I'm a young kid and I live with my parents still, right? So that is how I did that. And so yeah, those are all the ways that I have gained confidence in myself, even though I am still misunderstood quite a bit. But I know that I will get to great places. I've gained a lot of skills over the year, and content creation is another way I can express who I truly am. And yeah, these practices all led to great things, because now people really trust me with my advice, because I have I know who I am, first of all. Like, I have a very strong sense of self. I know what I value. I know what I'm thankful about for who I am. I know what makes me me. I know my talents, right? And so I know myself, and so I'm able to really channel really good advices. And people often come to me for thoughts, right? Not even advice, just like, what are your thoughts and opinions on this, you know? because I have developed something strong in myself. And so yeah, that's what I want to share in today's video. Hope you enjoyed, and that's how I became confident. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.